Students, today we are going to study about the nervous system. In that nervous system, we will study the different parts of nervous system. What are the functions of the different parts of the nervous system? Okay. So we will see the what is the definition of nervous system. Nervous system का मतलब क्या होता है? Nervous system क्या होती है? तो जो भी हमारे बॉडी के मूवमेंट्स है, जो भी हमारे बॉडी के डिफरेंट अलग अलग फंक्शंस है, अलग अलग बिहेवियर है, ये सब जो मूवमेंट्स है, बिहेवियर है, ये सब कोऑर्डिनेट करना, उन सब का कोऑर्डिनेशन बनना. देन उसमें फॉर एग्जांपल हो सकता है बैलेंस. जब हम चलते हैं तब उसका बैलेंस करना, बॉडी का बैलेंस करना. जब हम कुछ बोलते हैं तभी उस टाइम पे जब हमारे हाथ हम इधर उधर हिलाते हैं तो उस टाइम का सब जो कोऑर्डिनेशन है वो सब कोऑर्डिनेशन हमारी सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम कहती है, नर्वस सिस्टम कहती है. तो नर्वस सिस्टम का डेफिनेशन क्या है? इट इज़ ए पार्ट ऑफ एनिमल्स बॉडी दैट कोऑर्डिनेट्स इट्स बिहेवियर एंड ट्रांसमिट सिग्नल बिटवीन डिफरेंट बॉडी एरियाज. ओके, so we will see the different types of nervous system. So this nervous system is again divided into two types. One is the central nervous system and another is the peripheral nervous system. So central nervous system is composed of two parts mainly. One is the brain and another is the spinal cord. Then peripheral nervous system, it is composed of four parts, that is cranial nerves, spinal nerves and autonomic nervous system. So we will study that. First is the nervous system. Two types of nervous system. One is peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. Central nervous system composed of brain and spinal cord. So this brain and spinal cord forms our central nervous system. So this part, which is I just encirculated this part, which is called as the central nervous system. Then what is the peripheral? Peripheral का मतलब क्या होता है? साइड का. तो जो भी सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम से नर्व्स निकलते हैं, जो भी ये सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम से डिफरेंट नर्व्स निकलते हैं, these different nerves joins or connects our central nervous system to different body parts, or these different body parts are connected to our central nervous system. So what is the function of this peripheral nervous system is the just to collect impulses or whatever the behavior, whatever the movements these body parts are doing. For example, our hand is doing movements either here and there. These movements are while doing these movements the impulses are created, and these impulses are just brought to central nervous system for coordination by this peripheral nervous system. Okay, so this part is a central nervous system, and just see in another diagram the peripheral nervous system. This whole part is a peripheral nervous system. Okay, this whole part is a peripheral nervous system. So peripheral nervous system is again divided into two types. One is the autonomous nervous system and somatic nervous system. So this, what is autonomic nervous system? This autonomic peripheral nervous system, it consists of these parts or these body parts which are self-regulated, whose actions are self-regulated. For example, क्या हो सकता है? Heart. Heart is our self-regulated. We don't need to regulate our heart movements, right? So this heart is a autonomous nervous system. So this autonomic is it controls self-regulated actions of internal organs and glands. This again is divided into two types. One is the sympathetic and another is the parasympathetic. Then we will go to the somatic nervous system, that is the another part of the peripheral nervous system. One is sensory input and another is the motor output. So we will go now to our central nervous system. So this we know that central nervous system is composed of two parts mainly. One is the brain and another is the spinal cord. So we will see about brain. So this brain is a central part of central nervous system which lies in cranial cavity. So where is our brain? Our brain is lying in cranial cavity or inside the skull. So it consists of it is mainly made up of five different parts. One is the cerebrum, which is the largest part of brain, then cerebellum, then midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata. Through this midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata, our brain stem is formed, or these three parts together we call it as the brain stem. So first we will see the cerebrum. अब cerebrum क्या होता है? जो भी अपर पार्ट है ब्रेन का उसे हम बोलते हैं cerebrum. I will show you in the diagram, then we will go to the theoretical part. So here is the cerebrum. Just see this yellow portion. This yellow portion is a cerebrum. So this cerebrum is again divided into two parts. We call it as each part is called as the hemisphere. So the right side hemisphere is called as the right hemisphere, and left side hemisphere is called as the left hemisphere. Okay, so we will see in detail the cerebrum. So this is the diagram of cerebrum. These are the two hemispheres of cerebrum. This is the right hemisphere and this one is the left hemisphere. So this cerebrum is again divided into from front side to the back side into different lobes. So this front lobe is called as the frontal lobe, then the lobe between the frontal lobe and the occipital lobe, which is called as the parietal lobe. Then behind that parietal lobe there is a occipital lobe, and on the each side of our cerebrum above our ears there is a one lobe, we call it as the temporal lobe. We seen all this in our skeletal system. Even in skeletal system also the bones of our skull are divided with these same names, that is frontal bone, parietal bone, occipital lobe bone and temporal bone of our cranial cavity, right. So this is the diagram of cerebrum, just for your conceptual clarity. Then we will see this also here itself, that cerebrum has two parts, right, two hemispheres, and these two hemispheres are separated by one curtain like structure, and this curtain like structure is called as the fall cerebri, जिसे हम मराठी में बोलते हैं पर्दा, मतलब दो हेमिस्फीयर के बीच का जो पर्दा है उसे हम बोलते हैं fall cerebri. So this fall cerebri separates two parts of cerebrum, that is this right hemisphere of cerebrum and the left hemisphere of cerebrum. Then from this cerebrum, this cerebellum we seen that where it is located below the occipital bone, okay. So this cerebellum, this is the cerebellum. This cerebellum is again got separated from cerebrum, that is two hemispheres of cerebrum with another curtain, we call it as the tentorium cerebelli. So just remember this diagram, okay. We will see this in detail ahead. Now we will go to our theoretical part. So just see here, brain, in that we will first see the cerebrum. Cerebrum, it is the largest part of our brain, right. And what are the parts of cerebrum? We seen there are two hemispheres, that is right and left hemispheres, and these right and left hemispheres are separated by falls cerebri. So this is the Dura Mater in the midline. हमने देख लिया जो भी हमारा राइट हेमिस्फीयर था और लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर था, जिसके बीच में जो भी एक सेरेब्री था और मिड लाइन थी, उसे हम बोलते हैं फॉल सेरेब्री. देन दिस अनदर इज द कॉर्पस कैलोसम. कॉर्पस कैलोसम इज ए ब्रिज ऑफ वाइट मैटर बिलो. मतलब these two parts of cerebrum, two hemispheres of cerebrum are connected to each other. We know that these two parts, suppose I am drawing diagram here, this is the right hemisphere, right, this is the left hemisphere, and from these two hemispheres are separated by one curtain or midline, we call it as the, this midline is a, what is it, it is falls cerebri, it is the falls cerebri. Then corpus callosum क्या होता है, these two parts again joined by one white matter, part of white matter below. So below this falls cerebri, these two hemispheres are connected to each other. So these hemispheres are, right and left hemispheres are connected to each other, we call it as the corpus callosum. No need to go in detail, okay. Then next we will see what are the different types of or lobes of the cerebrum. We seen that there are four lobes. One is the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe and occipital lobe. These are the four lobes of cerebrum. If the question comes in the exam about the brain, just give in detail the structure of the brain. So what you have to do, just draw any one diagram. You can draw this one diagram, you can draw this one diagram, okay, and just give these 5 parts, okay, and just no need to go in every parts detail. Give the cerebrum, what are the parts of cerebrum and which these parts are separated by which part, and what are the lobes of cerebrum. No need to go into detail, where is frontal lobe is located, where is temporal lobe is located, okay, just enlist these parts, you will get the good marks. Then we will go to the features. अब ये features क्या होते हैं, जो भी हमारे different lobes है, these lobes are separated by the features. Features is nothing but just the grooves, that is the one. Fissure is nothing but just like a separation, okay. So these grooves that separates parts of the brain are called as the fissures. So what are the features? These are the mainly 4 fissures. One is the central sulcus or central fissure. This central sulcus divides frontal and parietal lobe. जो भी हमारा frontal and parietal lobe है, suppose this is our frontal lobe, this is our parietal lobe. This fissure is a central sulcus or the central fissure. Then parieto-occipital sulcus. Parieto-occipital sulcus means this sulcus separates our parietal lobe and the occipital lobe, right? So suppose this is the parietal lobe, okay, this is the parietal lobe and this is the occipital lobe. So these parietal and occipital lobes are separated by one fissure from here, and this fissure is a, which fissure it is? It is the parieto-occipital sulcus or parieto-occipital fissure, occipital sulcus. Then another is the third major one is the sylvian. No need to go into the calloso-marginal fissure because we can't see that with the eyes. This is located inside. Then sylvian fissure. This sylvian fissure is present between frontal, parietal and temporal lobe. Okay, I will show it here. This sulcus, this one, this is the sylvian fissure. Why? Because this sylvian fissure or this sulcus separates which parts? It separates frontal lobe from the temporal lobe, also parietal lobe from the temporal lobe, right? Hence we call it as the sylvian fissure. So this is about the three main fissures. Which one? One is the central, another is the parieto-occipital and third is the sylvian fissure. Then we will go to the grey matter. अब grey matter क्या होता है? Grey matter consists of nerve cells which constitute surface of hemispheres, right? And it is also called as the cerebral cortex. मतलब जो भी हमारा अपर पार्ट होता है, ब्रेन के अपर का जो पार्ट है, हमारा जो क्रेनियल कैविटी है, मतलब जो हमारे क्रेनियल बोन्स है, बोन्स और ब्रेन के बीच का जो पार्ट है, जो भी मैटर है, उसे हम ग्रे मैटर बोलते हैं. ओके, आई विल शो यू दिस इन द नेक्स्ट डायग्राम. So this grey matter, it consists of nerve cells which constitute surface of the hemispheres. It is also called as the cerebral cortex. Then it contains number of folds or convolutions, and these convolutions are again separated by the fissures as we discussed it above, that is these fissures. Okay, so this is the grey matter. We will go ahead. Then what are the specialized structures of grey matter? Why I am saying this here? Because they given very in detail, which is not needed. Just mug up this portion only, and if the question comes describe grey matter, just write these points. Okay, so this grey matter, one, it is composed of basal ganglia, then another part is the thalamus, hypothalamus. Okay, so this basal ganglia, it controls the fine movement of our body. Whatever the body moves, wherever moves, this movement is controlled or balanced by this basal ganglia. Then thalamus, it is situated at the base of cerebrum. Then relaying of sensory and motor nerves on the thalamus. It means that whatever the sensory nerves and motor nerves comes to the central nervous system, it enters into our central nervous system through this thalamus. Then hypothalamus, this hypothalamus, hypo means below, thalamus means below thalamus, so it is situated below thalamus. And what are the functions of hypothalamus? One is the synthesis of oxytocin and vasopressin hormones. Then coordination of ANS. ANS is nothing but autonomous nervous system, which is the part of our peripheral nervous system. We seen that. Then control of our appetite. Appetite nothing but जब जो भी हमें खाने के लिए जो भूख लगती है उसे हम appetite बोलते हैं. So control of appetite. So these three main functions are performed by the hypothalamus. Then another is the white matter. White matter is present inside the hemisphere, and the grey matter is present on the upper surface of the hemisphere. It means that outside the hemispheres, and white matter is inside the hemisphere. So it also contains the nerve fibers. Grey matter also constitutes the nerve fibers, but we call grey matter as the cortex. Okay, so this is about the grey matter and white matter. Then we will go to the next part. We see in this diagram also. See, where is the grey matter situated? I will show it here. On this surface, there is the grey matter. Whatever the matter here present here on the surface of this hemispheres, on the surface of this hemisphere, just below this is our cranial cavity, right? This is our cranial cavity. This part is our cranial cavity, and inside this cranial cavity there is the hemispheres, and between these hemispheres and this cranial cavity here, between this cranial there is a matter, and we call it as the grey matter. And where is the white matter? White matter is present inside these hemispheres, right? Inside these hemispheres, white matter. So this is about the cerebrum. Then we will cerebrum and the white matter. We will now see what are the functions of cerebrum. So what are the functions of cerebrum? First is the motor functions. Motor function means it controls voluntary movements of our body, hence motor function. Then what is the next function? Is the sensory function. Sensory functions कौन कौन से उसमें? एनालिसिस ऑफ टच, टच मीन्स अगर हमें कुछ करंट लग गया या किसी ने हमें टच किया तो उस टाइम पे जो हमें सेंस होता है, जब किसी ने हमें टच किया तो उस टाइम पे जो सेंस होता है वो कौन सा कंट्रोल करता है, दिस इज द सेरेब्रम। सो इट एनालाइजेस द टच कि टच किसका है, मतलब क्या उसमें स्पाइक्स है या किसी ह्यूमन ने टच किया है, तो उसका जो भी एनालिसिस है वो हमारा सेरेब्रम का था। सो एनालिसिस ऑफ टच, देन टेम्परेचर, अभी तो विंटर शुरू है तो विंटर में बहुत ज़्यादा ठंड लगती है तो दिस एनालिसिस इज ऑल्सो मेड बाय द सेरेब्रम। देन पेन, प्रेशर, शेप एटसेट्रा। देन गवर्निंग ऑफ कंडीशनल रिफ्लेक्सेस, देन कंट्रोल ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस, स्पीच, memory etc. through higher centers of cerebrum. And these functions are governed by two parts of cerebral cortex. Which one? We seen just now, motor cortex and the sensory cortex. तो motor cortex क्या होता है? This motor cortex controls voluntary movements of our body, and the sensory cortex controls the sensations like touch, pressure, temperature etc. So this is all about the cerebrum. And I told you before what are the special structures of gray matter, that is ganglia, thalamus and hypothalamus, and what are its function. Just see that only, no need to go in detail of that, these special structures of gray matter. Now we will go to the next part, our cerebellum. So where is cerebellum situated? It is situated below the occipital lobe of the cerebrum, right? I shown it here. Again I will show you. This part is our cerebellum. This part is our backside part is our cerebellum. Okay. So about cerebellum, it lies below cerebrum. Also it is situated in the posterior cranial fossa behind the pons and medulla oblongata. Then tentorium cerebelli, ये क्या करती है? It is a layer of dura mater which separates cerebrum and cerebellum. मैंने दिखाया था आपको. This part, cerebellum, tentorium, this part, it separates cerebrum and cerebellum. We call it as the tentorium cerebelli. Then next is the two cerebellar hemispheres are separated by partition of dura mater is called as the false cerebelli, right? हमने cerebrum में भी देखा था, cerebrum में भी दो हेमिस्फीयर सेपरेट कर रहा था, false cerebri. Here two hemispheres of the cerebelli is again separated by one cerebelli, we call it as the false cerebelli. That is, suppose this part, this is the right hemisphere of cerebellum, this is the left hemisphere of cerebellum, and this middle portion is called as the false cerebelli. We call it as the false cerebelli. Okay, then we will go next. And outer gray matter, this cerebellum also contains outer gray matter and inner white matter, same as like the cerebrum. What are the functions of cerebellum? First is the coordination of our muscular movements. Whatever the muscular movements are happening in our body, these are coordinated by the cerebellum. It also keeps the muscles in normal state of tension. जब हम tension में होते हैं तो उसे normal state में रखते हैं. Then maintenance of balance and equilibrium. So these are the main functions, three main functions of cerebellum. Now we will proceed to the midbrain. अब midbrain क्या होता है? We will see that. So midbrain, it is a short constricted segment of brain which forms connection between cerebrum and other parts of the brain. Okay, जो भी हमारा main part है cerebrum और different parts of brain जो है ना, उसमें जो भी बीच का जो पोर्शन है उसे बोलते हैं midbrain. मतलब जो midbrain क्या होता है? Different parts of the brain and the cerebrum, these are connected to each other through this midbrain. So first it contains three different, actually it's 5 different types of parts. One is the cerebral penducles. So these are the two thick bundles present ventrically. Ventrically means from upper portion, and they are separated by the deep depression. Another is the cerebral aqueduct. ये क्या होता है? It is a narrow canal which passes through center of the midbrain. Midbrain के जो center से निकल जाता है canal, उसे हम बोलते हैं cerebral aqueduct. This canal connects the cavity of third and fourth ventricles. Then superior colliculi. Superior colliculi, it is a pair of rounded bodies present at the root of aqueduct, and they are reflex centers of hearing. So what is the main function of the superior colliculi? These are the reflex centers of hearing. Superior colliculi. No need to go in detail. Just remember what is the midbrain and where it is situated, and it forms the connection between the cerebrum and other parts of the brain. Even though you will not remember this part, it will be fine, no need to remember all these parts. Then inferior colliculi, it is an inferior pair, are also present at the root of aqueduct, and they contain reflex centers of hearing itself. Okay, now we will go to the pons. So what are the pons? These pons are lies under the cerebellum. Under the cerebellum there are pons, and it contains both grey matter and the white matter. So the parts of brain, different parts of brain contains both of these, grey matter and white matter. So grey matter and white matter is present in every part of the brain, right? So it forms a bridge between the two lobes of the cerebellum. What these pons do? It forms bridge between the two lobes of cerebellum. I will show you it here. See, these are the, actually pon is present best inside this cerebellum, and this cerebellum is connected to each other through the pons. Okay, these two hemispheres of cerebellum are connected to each other through these pons. जैसे two hemispheres of cerebrum were connected to each other through what? Callus. Okay, cerebri callus or callus marginis. Then we will go next, pons. Then this is about the pons. Just remember these 2 points only, no need to go into detail. It contains both grey matter and white matter. Where it is situated or lies under the cerebellum. And another is it forms a bridge between two lobes of the cerebellum. Don't go in detail how many nerves it contains. This is not needed for you. Just for remember this whatever I am telling here. Then another is the medulla oblongata. Okay, so in medulla oblongata it is also a part of brain, and where it is situated, it forms upward continuation of the spinal cord. जो भी हमारा spinal cord है, this is our spinal cord, right? And this spinal cord is connected below to our cerebellum. This is our suppose cerebellum, right? And spinal cord is coming below. So this spinal cord connects to this cerebellum, below cerebellum, through the one part we call as the medulla oblongata. So it is a upward continuation of the spinal cord. So here this spinal medulla oblongata is present. It lies on the base of skull just in front of foramen magnum, and it contains two ridges on the ventral side surface called pyramids. So on the ventral sides there are two ridges. Actually these ridges are present like a pyramids. Here is our cerebellum. There are two parts. Then these two ridges, they are crisscrossing each other like a pyramids, and these pyramids are formed by number of neurofibers. I will show you this in another pen diagram. But this is our cerebellum. This is our spinal cord. Here is our medulla oblongata. I am showing you it in the red color. Here is our medulla oblongata, and this medulla oblongata, it contains pyramid-like structures formed by two types of nerves, and they are crisscrossing each other. Okay, here they are crisscrossing each other. So these pyramids are formed by number of nerve fibers which descend from cerebral hemispheres into spinal cord. So our cerebral hemisphere is here, right? There is our two cerebral hemisphere. Don't go into my diagrammatic skill. I am not good in diagrams. So, and nerves from this cerebrum are coming into the medulla oblongata from inner side of the cerebellum and going into our spinal cord through this medulla oblongata, and from this medulla oblongata these nerves starts again as our spinal cord. So the pyramids are formed by number of nerve fibers which descend from the cerebral hemispheres into the spinal cord, right? हमने देख लिया. Before they enter into spinal cord, the fibers of one side cross with those of the other. जैसे कि यहाँ पे मैंने दिखाया, the fibers of one side, this side are crossing with another side, and this crossing of nerve fiber is called as the decussation of the pyramids, and this cross is called as the what we call decussation of the pyramid. And this decussation of pyramids, it is very sensitive organ. Why it is a sensitive organ? Suppose this organ gets damaged, we get into paralyzed. Both the sides of our brain gets paralyzed. Why? Because at this point of decussation of pyramids, these nerve fibers are crossing each other. Hence, once this part is broken or get damaged, both of these two nerves from two sides of the nerves are getting damaged. Hence, it results into the paralysis. And because of this cross section, what it says, injury to one side of the brain produces paralysis of muscles of the opposite sides, right? Even though the one side of part it gets injured, the other part also get injured, and we go into the condition of paralysis. So this is about our brain, whole system of the brain. Now we will proceed to the spinal cord. So what is spinal cord? Spinal cord, it is a part of central nervous system which is present in the vertebral canal. हमें पता ही है. The upper end of spinal cord commences at the level of foramen magnum. Foramen magnum, we seen that in when we are seeing our skeletal system, right? And the upper end is continuous above the medulla oblongata. जो भी medulla oblongata है इसके ऊपर जाता है. Actually medulla oblongata itself is a upper continuation of the spinal cord, right? Then the lower end lies at the level of first lumbar vertebra. हमने जब vertebral column देखा था उसमें देखा था हमारा टोटल lumbar vertebra कितने होते हैं, 5 होते हैं वो. So the lower end of spinal cord it lies at the level of first lumbar vertebra. So it does not fill the lower part of the vertebral canal, and the lower end of spinal cord terminates in a bunch of nerves called as the cauda equina. So no need to go into detail, just remember that what is spinal cord, what is the position of spinal cord, that our spinal cord is starting from our lower end of cerebellum, or you can say from the medulla oblongata, and it goes towards the first lumbar vertebra, right? So it ends at the first lumbar vertebra of our vertebral column. Then we will see the enlargement. What is the enlargement? The spinal cord shows two enlargements in its course. One is the cervical enlargement and another is the lumbar enlargement. We know that cervical vertebral column, we seen that, and the lumbar enlargement. The nerves to the arms and legs arise from these enlargements. So जो भी हमारे legs और जो हमारे हाथ के जो nerves है वो कहाँ से emerge होते हैं? From cervical vertebra or cervical spinal cord, the nerves of arms arises, and from lumbar enlargement the nerves of legs arises. Okay, so this is about the enlargement of the spinal cord. Then what is the structure of spinal cord? We will see the structure of spinal cord. So in that structure of spinal cord, now we will see the structure of spinal cord. So this diagram is about the structure of spinal cord. So we will see what are the different parts of the structure of spinal cord. First is the white matter. So white matter is present on the surface and gray matter in the interior. So it is reverse as the brain. ब्रेन में क्या होता था, जो ग्रे मैटर है वो सरफेस में रहता था और जो वाइट मैटर जो है वो इनर पार्ट में रहता था. लेकिन स्पाइनल कॉर्ड में क्या होता है, इससे रिवर्स होता है और अपोजिट होता है. ग्रे मैटर इज इनसाइड एंड वाइट मैटर इज आउटसाइड. ओके, so white matter is on the surface and gray matter is on the interior part of the spinal cord. Then gray matter is a H-shaped. This part is a gray matter of spinal cord. So this gray matter is present inside the spinal cord, and which is the H-shape. It divides white matter into anterior, posterior and lateral columns. Okay, so this gray matter divides white matter. So this remaining part, that is the outer part, is a white matter. I will show you this white matter in red color. This white matter is divided by this H-shaped gray matter into three different parts. Which parts? One is the anterior part, another is the posterior part, and third is the lateral part. Lateral means this part. This part is called as that is the parts of white matter which are divided by the gray matter. So the anterior fissure separates anterior columns of the each side. So where is this anterior feature separate this anterior column of the gray matter and another white matter of the column of the gray matter. This anterior fissure separates anterior columns of each side. The H-shaped gray matter contains anterior and posterior horns. Okay, so this is the H-shaped gray matter, right? And this H-shaped gray matter contains anterior and posterior horns. Just one minute. This is the anterior horn of the gray matter, and this part is the posterior horn of the gray matter. Then the anterior horn cells are concerned with the motor functions. Whatever the anterior horn cells, these anterior horn cells, I am showing it here. These anterior horn cells, these are concerned with the which functions? That is the motor functions. And anterior root of spinal nerves arise from the anterior. Then posterior horn cells are sensory in function. these posterior horn cells are sensory in functions, and these anterior horns are the motor in functions. We know that what is the motor function. Motor function is just the control of voluntary muscles, and sensory function is just the sensation or analysis of touch, temperature, pressure, all these things. Okay, so this is about the structure. Then posterior root contains the ganglia called as dorsal ganglia. हमने देखा था this posterior root contains ganglia, we call it as the dorsal ganglia. Then a minute canal is present in the center of spinal cord. Spinal cord के center में एक minute canal present होता है, उसे बोलते हैं central canal, right? It is called as the central canal, and it contains cerebrospinal fluid, and it continues above with the fourth ventricle. So cerebrospinal means cerebrum fluid and fluid of the spinal cord. Hence we call it as the cerebrospinal fluid. So this fluid is transferred from cerebrum to spinal cord to cerebrum through this canal. We call it as the central canal. Okay. Then we will go to the meninges. So what are the meninges? Meninges are just the outer part or outer membranes of our brain. So brain and spinal cord are protected by three coverings or membranes. We call it as the meninges. So meninges are the outer layerings of the brain and the spinal cord. So first is the dura mater. Dura mater, it forms the outer layer of the brain. Then arachnoid mater, it forms middle layer, and pia mater is a inner layer. So there are three types of meninges. One is the dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. So dura mater is present forms outer layer, middle layer is formed by the arachnoid, and inner layer is formed by the pia mater. No need to go into detail, just remember this diagram for exam. Okay, this diagram. Outermost covering is the skull bone. Then inside that there will be the middle layer. Inside the skull bone there is the dura mater. Right? This part is a dura mater. I will show you here with different colors. So first I am showing the dura mater. This part is a dura mater. Then inside that there is the arachnoid mater. This is the arachnoid mater. Then inside part is the pia mater. This part is a pia mater. Okay, this part is a pia mater. Now we will go to the see in detail dura mater. So what is the dura mater? It is a outermost fibrous membrane. It lines the interior of the skull. Right? It contains two folds which project into cranial cavity. Which of these two folds? One is the falx cerebri. We know that this falx cerebri forms the midline between two cerebral hemispheres. Another is the tentorium cerebelli. This tentorium cerebelli also forms midline between the two hemispheres of cerebellum. Okay, so this tentorium cerebelli, it lies horizontally and it separates cerebrum and cerebellum. We know that. Then arachnoid mater, it is a thin transparent membrane. It lies between dura mater and the pia mater, right? The space between the arachnoid mater and the pia mater is called as the subarachnoid space. कौन से arachnoid mater and the pia mater, we call it as the subarachnoid space. And this space contains cerebrospinal fluid which flows from the cerebral or central canal. Then another is the pia mater. So pia mater, it is the innermost layer. It closely covers the brain and the spinal cord. Closely covers brain and the spinal cord. And it also dips into fissures of the brain. Another is it contains minute blood vessels which supply the brain and spinal cord. Now we will see the ventricles of the brain. So ventricles of brain, they are cavities in the brain which are filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. जो भी brain में cavities है, these cavities are called as the ventricles, and these cavities are filled with one of the fluid we call it as the cerebrospinal fluid or the brain fluid. The ventricles are 4 in number. Actually there are 4 types of or 4 in number of ventricles. One is the right and left ventricles which lie one in each cerebral hemisphere, right? Which one? Right and left ventricles. Then third ventricle is the which is present in the midline. Midline जो है उसमें the third ventricle communicates with the two lateral ventricles and also with the fourth ventricle, right? So see, this is the lateral ventricle. On opposite side of this there is another lateral ventricle, right? Then this third ventricle which is present in the central part, this connect with this ventricle, that is lateral ventricle, and that side lateral ventricle. Then fourth ventricle, it lies in front of the cerebellum. It lies in front of the cerebellum. So here it is here present, it is fourth ventricle. So, and behind the pons and medulla oblongata, it is continuous below with the central canal of the spinal cord. Then we will see the cerebrospinal fluid. So what is the cerebrospinal fluid? It is clear, colorless and alkaline fluid. Where it is present? It is present in subarachnoid space. Where is the subarachnoid space? It is present between the arachnoid, Dura Mater and the pia mater. Then ventricles of the brain, these are the 4 in number. Central canal of the spinal cord, it is present in the center of the spinal cord. So cerebrospinal fluid bathes the entire surface of the brain and the cord, right? Whatever the brain and spinal cord, it baths. It means that it gives like a, we take in the morning water in our body like this. This cerebrospinal fluid acts as the watering matter to the brain. Then we will go to the where the CSF means cerebrospinal fluid is secreted. So it is secreted by network of blood vessels called choroid plexus. This choroid plexus, what is it? It is a network of blood vessels which secrete secretion of CSF. It can come as your objective question. So type of blood vessels secrete CSF. Which type of blood blood vessels secrete CSF? This is the choroid plexus. This plexus is situated in the lateral ventricle. So it is situated in the lateral ventricles. So here this it is situated lateral ventricle. Then composition of CSF. अब इसमें क्या क्या होता है? इसमें होता है water, glucose, proteins, nitrogenous substances and electrolytes like sodium, potassium, calcium and chlorides, and few cells, mostly lymphocytes. Then what are the functions of cerebrospinal fluid? We will see. First, it protects the brain and spinal cord from the shock. How it protects? Because it provides water or fluid in nature. So it gives bath to the brain. So it protects it from the shock. Another is it conveys nutrients to the brain and spinal cord. It means that it transfers nutrients to the brain and spinal cord. Then it removes the waste products of the brain and spinal cord. So it does 3 main functions. First is shock protection. Another is the supply of nutrients, and third is the removal of waste products from the brain. So these are the 3 main functions of CSF. Now we will see the peripheral nervous system in another lecture. Okay, so we will stop here and we will see the peripheral nervous system in the next lecture. Thank you so much.